Hello, Tiger fans. It is Tuesday, October 8th, and Mark Fitzpatrick is away again, so I'm Paul Blackman filling in, and we are honored today to have Missouri legislator and former Tiger football player Kurtis Gregory with us. Kurtis, thank you so much for coming out today.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Especially this time of year in the political season, to take time out to come here is really great. Appreciate it.
Yeah, political season, but farming season also. So shout out to all the farmers out there. We've been in the fields and getting soybeans cut and corn out, and it's been a really good harvest so far.
Great. Just a little background. I knew this, but maybe our viewers didn't. But you were from Blackburn, Missouri. Population about 225 or so.
Yeah, 250, 300, somewhere in there.
Depending if you're in town or not. Right?
That's right. That's right.
And but it's so big, it sits in both Lafayette and Saline County, right? Right on the
a little bit. That's right.
And went to Santa Fe, R10 or whatever
That
it is
correct.
in Alma.
You've done your studying.
So, being from there, I suspect that Marshall was the big city.
Yep, Marshall was big. We were a good football team, and we always wanted to challenge. And it's like, man, why aren't we playing Marshall? But they were a 4A school, and they probably would have demolished us. Even though we were pretty good at the time.
Pretty good. So you went to Mizzou, started out as left tackle, but ended up at right guard.
Yeah, that is correct. I actually started on the defensive line because that was I was one of the top-ranked defensive tackles in the state when I was getting recruited. I played both ways, and I started on the defensive line in fall camp. And somebody named Evander/Ziggy Hood came in from Amarillo, Texas. He was a pretty good ball player.
Pretty good.
So they quickly moved me back to offensive line and let Ziggy be the true freshman that played on defense. I think I was third string left guard going into spring ball in 2006. Tyler Llewellyn blew his ACL in spring practice. That moved me out to second string left tackle. And by the end of spring ball in 06, I had the starting job, and so I rotated in 06. And then moved back over to guard. And actually, a little known fact, in 2008, after Tyler graduated, Elvis Fisher was going to be left tackle coming out of spring ball. And Christensen goes, I'm not going to have a redshirt freshman protecting the blind side of my Heisman quarterback. And so I actually was going to be the starter at left tackle, but in fall camp in 08, I forgot how to play left tackle apparently. And it was very apparent that Elvis was the better left tackle, and I moved back to guard. And at that point, we just took off in fall camp as an offense. Once I went back to guard, and Elvis played left tackle.
So Elvis was from St. Pete in Florida.
Yeah, but he's as country as they come. I mean, he fit in well with us country boys because at that time in 2008, we had Bramer, Missouri, Blackburn, Missouri, Hughesville, Missouri, Bethany, Missouri, and then St. Petersburg, Florida.
So Bethany was the biggest of all.
Yeah,
those
Bethany
towns,
was the biggest, and they bounced back and forth from 1A to 2A. Myself, Tim, and Colin were always 1A.
So Tim Barnes.
Yeah, Tim Barnes, who actually played some 8-man football in high school.
Yeah, great teams, and so you got 2 degrees from Mizzou.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, went off to play with Carolina Panthers for a cup of coffee. Or
that was. I made it through OTAs and
MRIs. As long as we're doing initials.
Yeah, and probably like 10 days of training camp before I got released.
But then you came back to Missouri. We're farming. Got involved in the Corn Growers Association.
That's correct.
Okay. And from there, you launched a political career, which is where you are now.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. And you represented, I know you were in the Missouri House.
Yes, sir.
What district was that?
District 51. So my first 2 years, I had western Saline County, northwest Pettis, and northeast Johnson. So I had parts of Warrensburg, northern outskirts of Sedalia, Dresden, Missouri, the metropolis of Dresden, Lamont, then Blackburn. I didn't have any of Lafayette County. Then my second 2 years, we'd redistrict. So then I had all of Saline County and my stomping grounds, so to speak, from high school in eastern Lafayette County.
So the folks around there, they knew you.
Correct.
Okay. So now, then you're running for the Missouri Senate, correct?
21st? 21st district,
okay.
Correct.
And we'll see in a few weeks, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So before we finish up here, we have to talk about NIL because if you're either known for being a great football player, and by the way, did a terrific job as the post-game driving home to Kansas City. I listen to you every week. You did a great job.
I miss that a lot. I was actually when Coach Cadillac retired from doing color, that's how I got involved in that. Mike Kelly called me up. He's like, you need to call Mike Alden, tell him you're interested in the job. And so the interview process for that job was wild. We set up a big screen television in the press box with the 2010 Oklahoma game, and we started with the kickoff and we did the entire first quarter, like play-by-play and color guy talking back and forth. And it was down to me or Howard for the color job that Howard now holds. There's actually talk of doing a 3-man radio booth at one point, but they didn't do that. They asked me to do halftime and postgame, which was a blast.
By the way, you mentioned Don Fro earlier today. Don was the third man in the booth with Malin Aldrich and Sparky Stalkup. So there is precedent.
So there is, okay, all right. I didn't know how that was going to work out. So that's how I got involved in that. That was a lot of fun. I think they made the right choices. Howard is great. He's got a lot more football knowledge than I did because our offense was really, really basic. Like I just had to know like hockey right. That's all I had to listen to for a play call. But he knows like pro formation and can talk about defenses, so he does a really good job.
He does a great job. I always wondered why you were no longer on those post-game shows, and you explained today because there was a concern running for office, not even in office, but just running. They said, no, I can't do that.
Correct. So it is what had changed. You weren't considered an official candidate until you actually filed with the Secretary of State's office. While I announced my candidacy in like June, July of 2019, formed a committee. And it was actually that year where the FCC changed their rules that they considered you an official candidate when you started raising money. And so I get a call from Learfield the Wednesday before our very first game saying, why didn't you tell us you're running for office? And I told them it didn't matter because those were questions I asked. Can I continue to do post-game or halftime and post-game? And then I was told yes. And even my local radio station in Marshall, he's like, why aren't you doing it anymore? And I told him, he's like, those aren't the rules. I was like, well, that's what I was told. And he's went out and got his book. And he's like, oh, sure enough, they changed that.
So before we go here, we do have to talk about NIL because you are, rightly or wrongly, you're known as like the father of Missouri's NIL. You're the one who shepherded through the legislature, for which we are all grateful. Can you just talk about that a little bit before we go?
It's been a lot of fun to work on. I've said many times before in the interviews I've done, if you would have told me that I could directly affect recruiting, at the University of Missouri and quite frankly, all colleges and universities inside the state, I probably would have laughed at you. But here we are now. We've passed 3 different iterations, just kind of building blocks. Like sometimes you start with what you think is absolutely perfect. Then you have to pare it back, or you start with what you can get done. And that's what we did. We started with what you can get done in 2021. We added to it in 22. And then I guess we kind of got to the Holy Grail in 2023 where we really opened it up for coaches to talk about deals on the recruiting trail, protected us from NCAA or SEC of stepping in and saying, no, you can't do that deal. Allowing high school seniors to get paid once they sign a binding document or agreement. So we really kind of just set the mold for the gold standard of NIL. And it's been a blast to work on. Everyone that's helped me out with it. Legislative friends, this is going to be on video, but I've been disappointed with some of the news stories that have gone out because politics and being a legislature is a team. Just like playing football, you got to have everyone helping and working out. So there's been some great people that have worked with me on it. Nick Shore, Senator Barbara Washington from Kansas City, she's helped a lot. Mike Henderson. We actually in 2023, I put it on a workforce development bill carried by Representative Mike Henderson over on the east side of the state because it fit chapters. So it worked out well.
If you are elected to the Senate, is there more NIL work to be done? And in that chamber, will you be able to get something through?
Yeah, I've been blessed to have good people to work with in Jeff City on both sides of the aisle. And this is a topic that we've seen the fruits of, what it's been able to do for us on the field. And so I think there's a lot of desire to keep it up where it is. I'll continue, I'll handle it on the Senate. Like in the House, I always had to go to the Senate. It's like, who's going to help me? And Senator Nick Shore has been able to help me over there. Well, now that I'm moving to the Senate, I'm like, well, who's going to help me in the House? And my roommate that I live with in Jeff City, Representative Dane Deal, he's from, I think, Butler, Missouri, actually played a little bit of football at UCM out of high school. And so I've already been like, hey, Dane, if there's NIL stuff, you're going to be my guy in the House, all right? So we've got it covered on both sides.
Great. Well, we thank you as Missouri citizens, as Mizzou grads. We really thank you for all you've done for us.
It's been a blast to work on. It's fun to be a voice for Mizzou. Not in my House district nor in my Senate district, but everybody knows I went there, and it's near and dear to my heart. We've got a lot of things going in Columbia right now, not only in athletics, but also in academics. The research reactor, the Next Gen Hospital, Medical Research Center. Just a lot of exciting things happening in Columbia, and it's a destination for incoming students.
Curtis, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Next week, we will welcome Sam McDowell, columnist from the Kansas City Star, for his first visit here. And he'll be joined by Blair Kerkhoff, who's been with us probably as long as he's been in Kansas City. So join us next week. And also, if you're interested in joining the Tiger Club, look for us online at kctigerclub.com.